December 11th is celebrated as Pampanga Day in the Philippines in commemoration of the creation of the province of Pampanga under Spanish rule on December 11, 1571. And it was in fact the very first Spanish colonial province founded on the island of Luzon. And La Pampanga, as it was known to the Spaniards, was a vast province. It was a huge province that roughly corresponds to what are now the provinces of Region 3 or Central Luzon. However, unknown to many, the history of what is now Pampanga and the Kapampangan people goes deeper and more profound than the foundation of this colonial province. Indeed, for many Kapampangan elders and culture bearers, December 11th is also remembered as the day the kingdom of our Luzones ancestors officially fell to colonialism. Unknown to many, today's Kapampangan and Tagalog people, and pretty much the entire regions of Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Southern Luzon aka Southern Tagalog are technically direct descendants of the Luzones people and their pre-colonial kingdom of Lusong or Luzon. So, in today's video, we'll go beyond the colonial history of Pampanga and dig deeper into the pre-colonial roots of the Kapampangans and the Tagalog people. Mabuhay or Kapampangan, luwid kayo! Welcome back to another history video. It's me, Kirby Aráullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And in this channel, I make videos about our people's history, culture, and everything in between. So if you like learning about the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and beyond, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. Now, as a reminder, the Philippines as, a unified archipelago or a nation-state that we know today, this identity and these borders did not yet exist when Magellan allegedly discovered our islands, about 500 years ago. I mean, the Philippines as we know it today did not even exist 200 years ago. People often forget that pre-colonial Philippines was actually a collection of diverse indigenous peoples with a wide range of societies, from coastal city-states to mountain villages, from animist culture to flourishing sultanates and everything in between. And today's video is just a brief introduction to this topic. So check out the links below for a list of resources and recommended readings. And if you would like to support my channel and my research, please be my patron on Patreon or be a member of my YouTube channel or get copies of any of my books, coloring books, and ebooks or any of the merch linked down below. Now back to our topic. Let's dig deeper to the pre-colonial roots of Pampanga, Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Southern Luzon, and find out who exactly were the Luzones. I mean, what does Luzon even mean? Today, the word Luzon refers to the largest island of the Philippines and the fourth most populous island in the world. And the term Luzon is also often used to refer to the greater region of smaller islands surrounding the biggest island, aka the northern third of the Philippines. Unknown to many, the name Luzon itself came from the Spanish spelling of Lusong, the indigenous Kapampangan, and the ancient name of Manila Bay and the surrounding regions. Now, Manila Bay was known as Lusong because it was where many of the mighty rivers of the region like the Rio Grande de la Pampanga and the Pasig River plunge or converge. The word Lusong in Kapampangan or Lusong in Tagalog means to plunge or to ride the wind or current, a direction where the water plunges or drains. And if you look at the map, from space or from above, you would see that Manila Bay was where all the mighty rivers of Central Luzon, Manila Bay, and Southern Tagalog would plunge into the sea. This is where these mighty rivers would drain their water into Manila Bay. Now, according to Kapampangan oral traditions, Lusong also meant the land below the wind, as opposed to Sungsong, or the land above the wind. Now, the word Sungsong in both Kapampangan and Tagalog also means to sail against the wind, and it was often used by our Kapampangan ancestors to refer to what is now China. Though predominantly Tagalog speaking today, the vast regions of Central Luzon, Calabarzon aka Southern Tagalog, and Metro Manila, these vast lands that are now home to over a third of the Philippine population today were also once the ancestral homeland of the Kapampangan people. And indeed, according to historical linguistics and the careful study of the prehistory of the Tagalog people, the Kapampangans have called these vast territories their motherland for at least 2,000 and up to 5,000 years. The Tagalog-speaking people today, on the other hand, arrived later sometime around 1,000 to 1,200 years ago. And eventually, the ancestors of today's Kapampangan people and Tagalog-speaking people became known in history as the Luzones, and together together, they built a multi-ethnic, thriving pre-colonial society. And actually, unknown to many Tagalog speakers today, they actually have deep Kapampangan roots, even if they no longer speak or understand Kapampangan. And no, I'm not saying that all Tagalog speakers today have Kapampangan roots, but many don't realize that they do. Let me just clarify that, because sadly, today, there has been a lot of animosities between Tagalogs and the Kapampangans. And honestly, this is because of the stereotypes and the colonial divide and conquer tactics that dominated our society in the last couple of centuries. Yet, historically and culturally speaking, the Kapampangan and the Tagalog people share a lot in common. Like I said before, there are more things that we share together than divides us. And honestly, as someone with both Tagalog and Kapampangan roots, we just need to look beyond the labels and stereotypes against one another to get a better understanding of our shared struggles and heritage, and thus pave a path towards a brighter future for all our people, regardless of the language they speak. Now, prior to colonialism, the Luzones were renowned throughout Asia as valiant warriors, wealthy traders, and master seafarers. Unknown to many, they had legendary kings and queens who were actually blood related to the Sultans of Brunei, the Sultans of Sulu and Maguindanao, and the emperors of the Majapahit, and many more. They were friends and allies with the ancient peoples of what are now China, Japan, India, Thailand, Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia, and many others. Unknown to many, a decade before Ferdinand Magellan reached the islands of the Visayas in 1521, the first known recorded encounter between the Europeans and the Luzones had already happened 10 years before, during the Portuguese conquest of Malacca in 1511. And the Portuguese recorded them as Luzones, from their homeland, the Kingdom of Luzon. Now, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but those were their attempt at saying and adopting the native term Luzon into Portuguese, which eventually turned into Luzon, and the Luzones when translated into Spanish. Now, the Sultanate of Malacca during this time was actually one of the most important trading centers in the world, and the Luzones were among the prominent ethnic communities who were present and active in this lucrative international trade. The Luzones were also well known in the Straits of Malacca for being fierce warriors, prosperous entrepreneurs, and brilliant public leaders. Indeed, the Luzones commanded massive armadas of warships and merchant vessels, mighty fleets that became crucial in securing dominance in Southeast Asia during the height of the global spice trade. Hence, the necessity for the Portuguese to secure their friendship and alliance with the Luzones in 1511. This, however, was not the first documentation of Luzon. The Laguna copper plate inscription, written in the year 900 CE or 900 AD, is the earliest known historical document of Luzon. Indeed, it is the oldest known calendar-dated document found in the Philippines. This piece of copper scroll, found in 1989, recorded several of the various pre-colonial settlements of Luzon, including Tondo, then written as Tundun. Now, although Tondo today is just a district within the national capital city of Manila, Tondo, according to the various oral traditions of the Kapampangan people and historical records of the Philippines, had actually been the long-established and traditional dominant seat of power in Luzon for many centuries prior to the arrival of the conquistadors in the late 1500s. Now, before we continue, I just want to clarify that today's video is just a brief introduction into the fascinating world and the forgotten history of the Luzones people. You know, this video is not a video about the complete history of the Kingdom of Luzon. And I know that a lot of you have been requesting for me to make a series of videos about the many diverse pre-colonial kingdoms of our ancestors, like Butuan, Maguindanao, Sulu, Luzon, and many more. So stay tuned for my upcoming videos and upcoming books about the many diverse pre-colonial kingdoms and ancient societies of what is now the Philippines and Southeast Asia. But for now, back to our topic. So the next oldest known set of accounts pertaining to what is now Luzon would come from the Chinese records during the Song Dynasty, which reigned in ancient China between the years 960 CE to 1279. However, a Chinese version of the name Luzon or Lusong would only appear during the Ming Dynasty, during which the Ming annals recorded the Kingdom of Luzon as Lusongguo. It was also during this period that the Ming Dynasty dynasty and the kingdom of Luzon exchanged many succeeding envoys and emissaries to cement stronger relations between one another. As a matter of fact, the earliest recorded diplomatic mission from Luzon to Ming China was in the year 1372. It was also said that the kingdom of Luzon was among the countries visited by the legendary Ming treasure fleet of Admiral Zhang He sometime between 1405 to 1433. Now, what is often referred to as the Kingdom of Luzon was actually a collection of semi-independent principalities, city-states, and petty kingdoms that was somewhat similar to the political setup of the Holy Roman Empire in Europe. But we can explore and explain more about this geopolitical system in future videos. Now, throughout the islands of the Philippine archipelago, women occupied many esteemed positions in political and religious life before colonialism. And the foremost example of a female ruler in these islands was my own direct ancestor, the great Kalangitan of Luzon, popularly known today as Dayang Kalangitan, who eventually succeeded her father as the Lakan, the paramount ruler of Luzon. And Kalangitan ushered in the golden age of Luzon during a very long reign, which according to oral traditions was believed to be from around the mid-1400s down to roughly the early 1500s. But Kalangitan was not the only queen of Luzon, and you can learn more about these amazing queens in my new book, The Fierce Women of Early Southeast Asia. Now, this book actually covers over 2,000 years of history, culture, and oral traditions about our fierce and amazing ancestors. So don't miss out and order your copies today. But for now, back to our topic. As mentioned, eventually between the 1400s and the 1500s, Luzon became a trading powerhouse in the region, as the Luzones people subsequently held the monopoly of maritime trade with China. They were also well known for exporting firearms, like large bronze cannons, long before Europeans ever reached Manila Bay. And it was this prominence and lucrative trading rights that attracted many to Luzon. You know, from the infamous Wokup merchant pirates who intercepted the ships between Luzon, Japan, and China, to the Sultan of Brunei, who was said to have invaded Tondo in the late 1400s. And it was in fact this conflict between Tondo and Brunei that laid the foundations of the pre-colonial walled city of Manila, which ironically was ruled by the direct descendants of the once rivals, the Sultan of Brunei and the Lakans of Tondo. But more on this in future videos. In the following century, we saw the coming of the Spaniards, aka the conquistadors. Now, unknown to a lot of people, on July 29, 1521, the Spanish conquistadors abducted my ancestor, the young Prince of Luzon, and this happened within just a few months after Magellan's death in the Battle of Mactan. So the surviving crew of the Magellan Elcano expedition encountered the armada, or the fleet of the Sultan of Brunei. And this impressive armada with almost 300 warships was led by the young Prince of Luzon, who was also the Laksamana, or the Admiral of the Sultan of Brunei, the powerful maritime empire that dominated Southeast Asia in the 1500s. And this prince was Raja Aceh, the beloved grandson of the legendary Sultan Bolkiah of Brunei and his wife Putri Lela Menchanay of Sulu. And on his father's side, he was the grandson of Brunei's once rival Kalangitan of Luzon. Now, the young Raja Aceh of Manila would later be known in history and better known to many Filipinos today as the Raja Matanda. And if you look at older records, he was considered to be the king of Luzon when the Spaniards returned in the 1560s and 70s. And he, along with his younger brother Lakandula of Tondo and their nephew Raja Suliman of Maynila, were the last independent paramount kings of Luzon. So long history short, 50 years after this encounter in 1521, Tondo and Manila fell to the conquistadors in 1571, with most of the important principalities and city-states of Luzon falling like dominoes, one after another in the aftermath. And this is what eventually led to the creation of the Spanish colonial province of La Pampanga on December 11, 1571, hence today's Pampanga Day. But unknown to many, the Luzones were actually not easily defeated. In fact, the Spaniards proceeded to lay siege on several, not just one, several fortified city-states of Luzon. For example, the siege of Cainta in August of 1571, the siege of Betis in 1572, 1572 and Lubao also in 1572. And thus, the foundation of La Pampanga as a colonial province was seen as the downfall of the ancient kingdoms of Luzon. There's actually a common misconception that, as opposed to Datu Lapu-Lapu of the Visayas and later Sultan Kudarat of Mindanao, who valiantly resisted Spanish colonialism on the battlefield, the rulers of Luzon allegedly quickly surrendered after a minor skirmish. But the truth is, what happened was more of a gradual shifting of political power. In fact, the Spaniards did not actually take complete control of Luzon, until perhaps another century, in the late 1600s or even in the early 1700s. And throughout their rule in Luzon, throughout Spanish colonialism, they relied heavily on the social and political structures of the Datus, the Lakans, and the Rajas to govern and defend the islands. We must also understand that our ancestors' concepts of geography and politics were far different than that of the West. Sadly, most of us Filipinos today are more familiar with and more inclined towards Western biases in practically all matters regarding our ancestors and the world they inhabited. So let's make it clear that the defeat of Manila at the hands of the Spaniards and their Visayan allies did not mean a total surrender of Luzon to colonialism. In fact, Raja Suleiman himself of Manila was still waiting for reinforcements from Brunei until he suddenly faded from Spanish records sometime after 1578. And 10 years later, his children would rise up and conspire with the Japanese and the Sultanate of Brunei to overthrow the Spaniards. But in the meantime, the Luzones negotiated a peaceful solution with the Europeans. And this was perhaps to prevent further harm to the people, while at the same time gathering enough strength to fight back and eventually reclaim their sovereignty at the right time. And it was said that the Spaniards' failure to honor their end of the bargain, to honor their promises to our ancestors, gave the Datus of Luzon grounds and justification for future uprisings, like the revolt of the Lakans in 1588. Many may not know, but within the 300 years of Spanish rule over the Philippines, there has actually been over 200 recorded uprisings against the cruelties of colonialism, long before the Philippine Revolution of 1896. We must also not forget that the Spaniards never actually succeeded in conquering and colonizing many places of the Philippines, like the mountains of the Cordilleras, the indigenous Lumans, the Sultanates of Maguindanao, Sulu, and many more. But back to the Luzones, let's find out how exactly did the Luzones ended up being the first Filipinos in America. As mentioned in my older videos, on October 18, 1587, the Luzones Indios landed in what is now Morro Bay, California. They sailed with Pedro de Unamuno in a Spanish expedition to explore the coast of Northern California. They were the first recorded people from the Philippines to set foot in what is now the United States. And these Luzones Indios were highly skilled navigators and experienced sailors who aided the Spaniards in navigating the vast waters of Asia and the Pacific. Many of these Luzones Indios came from the vast province of La Pampanga, and they continued to arrive in the Americas throughout the Spanish colonial period. They also helped the Franciscan missionaries in establishing many of the earliest colonial towns in what is now California. Now, in October of 1588, a year after the Luzones landed in what is now California, the Lakans and the Datus of Luzon, led by Magat Salámat of Tondo, were exposed for leading a pan-Asian conspiracy to overthrow the Spaniards and liberate the Philippines. But sadly, as a result of this foiled revolt, Magat Salámat and his cousins, the leaders of this uprising, were gruesomely executed by the Spaniards. While Magat Salámat's own brothers, Dionisio Capulong of Candaba and Felipe Salonga of Polo, and their sons, along with several other Luzones Datus like Pedro Balingin of Pandacan and others, were exiled to Acapulco in what is now Mexico, and they were the first officially recorded people from the Philippines to settle in what are now the Americas. So long story short, the Luzones people have a long, fascinating, and deep complicated history in both Asia and the Americas. They aided European explorers and Christian missionaries while at the same time fiercely resisting colonialism in the Philippines and beyond. Unknown to many, they were even part of the many attempts to liberate liberate Malacca from the Portuguese in the mid-1500s. But in the long run, they were also instrumental in fostering centuries of cultural exchange and deeper connections between the diverse societies and indigenous peoples on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. And honestly, we're just, barely scratching the surface. Now, as I've mentioned before, many times before, knowing our roots and knowing our history does not simply mean a blind, nostalgic longing for the glitz and the glamour of the past, while ignoring the conditions of the present. It means being awakened and immersed in the realities of today, armed and empowered with the wisdom of our ancestors. This really means that we must stay rooted in our history while addressing our present-day struggles and while we pave the path towards a brighter future for our people. Because as our elders say in Tagalog, ang hindi marunong lumigon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. Or as our Kapampangan elders say, nung mayag yung balikdan, ingke kang milabas, mayag yung dasan, ingke kang bukas. And that is it for me today, so let me know what you think about today's topic in the comments below. And if you like this video or learned a thing or two, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to my brother from another mother, the very talented Wax of Pampanga. Shoutout to Lakandanum of New York, Santui from Indonesia, the amazing artist Faisal Rahman of Malaysia, and Leo from Batangas, Philippines. And syempre, special thanks and special shoutout to my patron and dear friend Dr. Dale Maglalang. And you all know that this video will not exist without the love and the support of all my patrons and subscribers and friends like Dale throughout these years. Kaya naman sa inyong lahat, to all of you, maraming salamat po, or in Tagalog na pala yun. O in Kapampangan, dakalpong salamat, and in Bahasa Melayu, terima kasih. See you next time, or in Tagalog kita kits, and in Kapampangan, Mikitiks, and in Bahasa Melayu, jumpa lagi!